Assalamu alaikum students. Hope you all are fine and enjoying your studies at home. You are listening to your chemistry teacher, Miss Anna Islam, and today you are going to study through APSIC's online support program, OSP. Your level is 9th and 10th, and our class is 9th. Here you can see our textbook of chemistry, grade 9, National Book Foundation. Page number of your book is 10 and 11. Chapter and unit number 1 is Fundamentals of Chemistry. Lesson and topic is Basic Definitions, Elements, Compounds and Mixtures. Resources required are your laptop, tab, smartphone, internet. Introduction and summary of the lesson is this topic is about your basic definitions of elements, compounds and mixture. As you know, students, our syllabus has been reduced, so we are directly studying the topics included in our reduced syllabus. As you know, the first topic of your book is branches of chemistry, but it is not included in your reduced syllabus. And now on page number 10, as you can see, topic is 1.2 basic definitions. Some of the important definitions which are required for the basics of chemistry are your elements, compounds and mixture. One must be able to know what are actually the elements, compounds and mixtures. Anything that occupies space and has mass is called matter. As you know that anything around us which has mass and occupy space is called matter. Matter can be of different types, different sets of characteristics, and they can differ from one another kind. And such type of matter is called your substances. For example, water has its own different characteristic. Oxygen has its own different characteristics, and they have a particular set of characteristics. The characteristics of the water are totally different from the characteristics of the carbon dioxide, urea, glucose, common salts, etc., and different kinds of substances we can see around us in our daily life. As you know that the characteristics of the glucose are sweet in taste, whereas our common salt is not sweet in taste. So any matter that has a particular set of characteristics that can differ from the characteristics of the another kind of the matter is called your substance. In this one, you can see at the top a substance that cannot be converted to other simpler substances is called an element. Now the question arises, what are the elements? You know very well that a substance that cannot be converted to other simpler substances means we cannot convert them further in any other simpler substance. It means they are the simplest unit which cannot be divided further. And its examples are your oxygen, your hydrogen, your iron, copper, aluminium, etc. An element is now defined as a substance whose all the atoms have the same atomic number. You have seen that if you are going through to study the element of what gold, so you can understand it easily that all the atoms of the gold have same atomic number of that of gold. And in the same way, if you are going to study the atoms of the oxygen, you will observe that all the atoms of the oxygen have the same atomic number. Now we are moving towards compounds. What actually the compounds are? A compound is a pure substance. First note it please, A compound is a pure substance that consists of two or more elements held together in a fixed proportions by natural forces called chemical bonds. We have to note down here a few things. First is a compound is a pure substance. Now the second question arises, what is the composition of the compound? So you can see that the composition of the compound is that it is consist of two or more elements. In a fixed proportion means they have a fixed number of elements from which they are formed by natural forces. And the third question is how they are formed. What are the forces which are keeping them together in a fixed proportion? So these are our chemical bonds. The properties of the compounds are different from the properties of the elements from which they are formed. The most common example is your water. When you are coming towards the composition of water, you can see that the composition of water is totally different from the characteristics of the oxygen and hydrogen. जबकि आपका पानी जो है वो हाइड्रोजन और ऑक्सीजन से ही बनता है. बट बेटा द characteristics of water are totally different from the hydrogen and oxygen. In the same way, you can see the carbon dioxide. You know the characteristics of the properties of the carbon and the oxygen, but the properties of the carbon dioxide are totally different from carbon and oxygen. In the same way, there is a copper sulfate, sodium chloride, etc. are the compounds. Elements and compounds have uniform composition throughout. It is a very important topic to be noted here that elements and compounds have their uniform composition throughout. Either the element or the compound, they have never changed their composition. It is not possible that if you are taking a chunk of gold and it has its different atoms have a different atomic number. No, if you are taking a 1 kilogram or 1 kilogram of any other substance or a sulfur in any amount, oxygen in any amount, you will see that it has the same number of atoms throughout it. Now, our third topic is an impure substance that consists of two or more pure substances retain their own individual chemical characteristics is called a mixture. You have heard many times that air is the mixture of gases. Air is the mixture of gases. Whenever you see the air, you can see that there are different gases in the air: nitrogen, hydrogen, inert gases, and other types of gases. But they all have their own chemical characteristics, they have their own composition, and they can retain their properties. You cannot observe that the oxygen in the air is different from the oxygen in the water. No, the oxygen is same in both different kinds of uh, compounds. A mixture can be converted into two or more pure substances by physical methods. For example, mixture of air, I have told you, water containing dissolved oxygen, table salt dissolved in water, salt plus sand, etc. These are all mixture. A mixture that consists of two or more visibly different components is called a heterogeneous mixture. When you combine, there are two types of mixtures, homogeneous and heterogeneous. It is a very interesting thing that whenever you combine salt and sand, you can see them differently. You can see both the salt and sand can retain their own properties independently without depending on each another. So, such type of solutions, such type of substances in which that two or more different components can retain their own properties are called heterogeneous mixtures. Whereas, on the other hand, You can see when you are dissolving salt into water, you cannot separate them again. So a mixture consists of only one phase. When you look at them, they will look like you have just a brine. Brine is salt dissolved in water. For example, sugar mixed in water, it is another example. You can dissolve a spoon of sugar in water, and when you look at them, you will see just water is in the glass, nothing else. But the mixture which is in single phase, when you look at them, it will look like you have a single liquid, like when you dissolve sugar in water. So homogeneous mixtures also have a uniform composition throughout. So here students, please note it that your elements, compounds, and your homogeneous mixtures, they all have uniform composition throughout. In fact, the entire physical world is made up of mixture of elements and compounds. Most of its components are made up of molecule. जितने भी हमारे पास components हैं, they are mostly consist of molecules. Coming towards here, you can see the pure substances, elements, as you know very well, like the element of gold, silver, they have all same atomic number, atomic masses. And compounds can be two and more than two elements together. And mixtures can be homogeneous and heterogeneous. Homogeneous means they look like they have a single phase, and in heterogeneous, they have two phases. They have their own different properties. Here you can see another example of heterogeneous mixtures. All components of the mixtures are visible because they don't mix together. When you mix the sand and salt, particles are not distributed evenly. Yes, we can say that. Sand and water, when you dissolve the sand into the water, you will see the sand is settling down at the bottom of the water, and you can see there are two phases: vegetable soup, oil and water. Very common example, oil and water. Homogeneous mixtures, in this kind of mixtures, you cannot distinguish the components. Yes, in coffee, puree, milkshake, chocolate, cold tomato soup, and your what? Orange juice, in which you cannot distinguish the what? Components. Here another slide you can see in it elements and compounds, and again mixtures, heterogeneous and homogeneous mixtures. And here is your assignment. It is your assignment in which you have to distinguish which one is atom, which one is molecule, which one is element, compound, and mixture. And you have to just match with the description and with the pictures given in the diagram. Okay? And in the diagram and in the piece, you have to study the diagram and you have to decide which thing is this. Either it is an element, molecule, ion, element, compound, or mixture. You have to just do element, compound, and mixture. Okay? And you have to answer the 8 question. A mixture of two components, what is it is? A pure compound made up of ions or what? A pure compound made up of molecules, that is what? You have to write few examples of these. Atoms of a single element, yes. Which is this? You have to explain it. Explain it, tick it, match it, and then send it to me. Thank you so much. Stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.